This isn't a bad game at all, but I am having a hard time thinking of things to talk about here. It's just not a lot going on right now. You know what, I'm gonna tell a story. I haven't told a story in a really long time. I don't know what story to tell, though. Man, please get out of the doorway, I'm about to tell a story. You're welcome to listen, but do it from the other side of the door, please. You know what, I'm gonna tell a story I've only told once to one person because it's probably the most embarrassing story I have. That might not be true, but it is super embarrassing. Fuck it, no shame though. When I was 19, I met a girl at a party, and I got her number and we were talking, and the next day I ended up at her place. And she wanted to give me a blowjob, but the timing could not have been worse. It was suboptimal timing. It would have been better timing if she gave me a blowjob when I was feeding my dogs in front of my parents, but this was just inhumane. I really, really had to take a piss. And for some reason, I didn't just excuse myself and was like, "Excuse me, I really need to use your restroom to urinate." I wanted to tough it out. I wanted to really, like, be a big man, a big strong man, and, you know, get a blowjob while having to take a piss, and, you know, I thought everything would be fine. So she starts going to town, and I piss all over her. Right in her mouth, in her face. There was no mistaking, it was piss. Like, you know, you can put lipstick on a pig, it's still a pig. This didn't even try to disguise its true identity. It was yellow as a pineapple, and it indiscriminately soaked everything in her room. It was like I was firing a Thompson submachine gun. It was fucking propelling at speeds I could only imagine a fucking space shuttle could travel at. And I was just shocked, because I don't usually piss with the force of 1,000 ballistas, but this piss was leaving my urethra with a mission, and that mission was to cover the world in itself, to drown the universe in this vile liquid I was producing. It was absolutely remarkable, and I felt it coming too. I could feel it just surging. I could feel the calm before the storm, and then the storm itself. I knew I had opened Pandora's box, and I was gonna try and play it off cool. I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna be like, you know, I ejaculate pretty hard sometimes, but when I saw how yellow it was, I knew this is how the world was going to end. And I remember, after the apocalypse erupted from me, I remember verbatim what she said. She said, "I just can't deal with this." And then I don't remember exactly what she said next, and I don't remember exactly how she dealt with the mess I created, but I do remember that it has a happy ending, and we ended up still hooking up, so that was fine. But on that day I learned a valuable lesson. Humanity received a grim reminder that when you need to piss, you should absolutely piss. It was also really cool of her though, because she didn't get extremely pissed off that I pissed on everything she held dear in the world. We saw each other a lot after that, actually. We didn't date, but we did see each other a lot. She was really cool. I really, really liked her. I also just realized I'm almost out of power here. And I also realized this is the first story I've shared about one of my many fuck-ups with women. Zoinks, the lights are off, oh no. It's been a little while since the last time I sat you down at the fireplace with my bathrobe slightly ajar to tell you an embarrassing story from the period in my life where I've LARPed as a fucking mysterious anime character. This was around the time I was like 18, 19 years old, so like freshman, early sophomore year of college, and I've told many a pathetic story from this sad compendium of miserable social ineptitude, and there's one I haven't shared with you that I thought I'd share today. This was actually the first date I ever went on, like first official date. I'll just give you a brief lore update for those that haven't seen any of the other videos. Back in early college years, I thought it'd be great to reinvent myself as a mysterious anime character in real life. It worked for the anime characters. Girls were always trying to constantly like gobble on their meat. And so I thought, well, if it worked for them, it could work for me. So I wanted to be like super unique. I wanted to wear a chain with my favorite video game disc on it, Psychonauts. So just be like a fucking chain with Psychonauts on it. I also refused to talk to people. So if people talked to me or asked me questions, I'd respond with like moans and grunts instead of words. It was really goofy shit. Like talking to me would be like talking to an NPC in Banjo-Kazooie where they just respond with like that's how I would pretty much respond to shit, or just complete silence. I have no doubt a lot of people on campus probably reported me to authorities as a potential threat to the university in those early year and a half, however long I spent doing that. But I eventually grew out of it. But during this time, I actually did get a date. My first real official date. Now, while this was my first date, it wasn't like I was a completely kissless virgin. I was a virgin who had been kissed once. It was a dare. A girl was once dared to kiss me because that was seen as such a punishment that in a truth or dare game, they made it a dare to kiss me. And I was like, fuck yeah, this is my time to shine. Probably pre-came and shit my pants at the same time. But anyway, I managed to get this date because a friend of mine from high school actually invited me to a party. We hadn't seen each other in quite some time, and they invited me out to go drink with them. At the time, I was completely straight edge. I didn't want to touch drugs. I didn't want to touch beer. I also wasn't even sure I ever wanted to lose my virginity. I was starting to think it might even be best if I didn't. But they invited me to this party, and I was still in this mysterious anime phase, and he invited me to play beer pong with him, and I was like, well, as long as I don't drink. And he's like, fuck it, Charlie, I'll just drink for you. Just fucking play with me. And I was like, sure, let's go. So we were playing, and then eventually his friends called him to do like a keg stand or something, so I needed a partner, and a girl hopped in to play with me. And I didn't say a fucking word to her. And I guess that must have been cool enough because she started talking to me, and then I eventually like mumbled out like, do you want to go to the beach? And she said yes. She gave me her number, and we set up a beach date for the next day. And my god, I don't even think I slept that night. I remember that night after the party, I went back to the dorm and I was just busting out hundreds of crunches and like bicycle crunches and shit, trying to sculpt out my abs speedrun style. I didn't eat, I only drank a ton of water, just trying desperately to get my six-pack to pop out a bit more. I was a lot leaner back then because all I focused on was being like ripped, but my arms were super skinny, so I just kind of looked like an actual poorly drawn anime character physique-wise. Nowadays, I'm just actually fucking jacked, but back then I was like, all I need is abs, and girls will want to fuck me real good. So I'm in my dorm for hours just fucking doing an impromptu P90X routine till the sun comes up, and I text her, she doesn't respond, I start to panic, I texted her again, still didn't respond, I'm fucking freaking out, I'm like, oh my god, I've ruined it, I fucking blew it, holy shit, it's all over, she hates me, she probably reported me to the police because I was creepy, oh my fucking god. I text her again, I fucking triple texted her, literally the worst possible thing you could do. She finally responds just saying she was sleeping, and then I realized that that's probably about par for the course because it was like 9 a.m. I was like, it's fucking like Saturday, and I'm texting her at 9 a.m. like 1,000 times. It you know, stands to reason that she might just be sleeping in. Fucking having a manic episode in the text messages there at 9 a.m. and then she still agrees to meet with me. She's like, yeah, we're still down for the beach, let's go. So we meet at my car. I play my boner jams, which was a real risk for me because the music I listened to then and the music I still listen to now isn't really popular. It's mainly like metal and shit like that. And luckily she likes that music. In fact, she even knew some of the bands like Cybreed. She likes Cybreed, which is still my favorite band right now. So that was cool, but I'd never done small talk or anything. So I didn't know how that was supposed to go, and I think she was picking up on that, so she took the initiative to talk to me. So she asked me, hey, did you have fun at the party last night? I said, nope. Which is a great response because, I mean, that's super cool. Like, hey, this guy is so goddamn badass, he didn't have any fun last night. But I do remember saying the only cool thing about the party was meeting you. I was like, that's kind of suave. So I hit her with that bit of smooth ass cheeks right there. To which she didn't really say anything. At least I don't remember her saying anything. Maybe she had just gotten completely sodden panties and, you know, that's probably what happened. But she continues, you know, standard stuff. What's your major? At the time it was digital arts. This was before I switched. Do you like digital arts? It sounds cool. What is that? And I was like, I fucking hate it. It's just making 3D animations. It sucks. So I'm just constantly doing my best to ruin any kind of positivity. That whole car ride was basically like condensed pessimism on wheels. And so she just keeps asking me these questions to which I'm giving like the worst responses to imaginable, convinced like the anime characters I've seen before that being different or being negative is cool to women, which it's definitely not. But she eventually gets to the dagger. What do you do? Like, she probably assumed I had like a job or something because she did. So she's like, well, what do you do for work? You know, what do you do? And I was like, can't get into that. It's a secret. Which obviously piqued her interest because, like, what the fuck does that mean? Am I like a CIA spy? Am I a hitman? An assassin? Like, what the fuck is that? She's like, well, what do you mean it's a secret? It's like, I just can't get into that. I can't talk about it. So she keeps poking the sleeping bear. She's like, well, what do you mean? What do you do? Like, it's kind of weird. Like, what do you do? And eventually I'm like, I make videos on the internet. Keep in mind, this is 2013. The idea of being a YouTuber was a foreign concept back then. I'd also never told anyone about this. I never said out loud that I made videos online. I always kept that like my biggest top secret. I never ever talked about it, but in this instance, I was fucking desperate. I was pulling out all the stops. I was emptying my pockets of all the possible fucking spaghetti I could fill on the floor, vomiting anything that might help my chances of getting me laid. I would have told her I was Santa Claus if I thought it would help my chances of getting my cock wet. I was just going all out. Just this once. Just trying. So I told her I make videos on the internet, and she laughed at me, which just felt phenomenal. She thought I was just kidding because I had hyped it up so much to that grand wet fart of a reveal. She was probably just relieved more than anything because she probably thought I was a psychopath with the way I was answering, but I dropped that nugget of truth on her, and at the time, like I said, this wasn't really anything anyone talked about. Like, YouTuber wasn't a thing back then. Most of the most popular shit was like Facebook pages that people knew. And when it came to YouTubers, most people only knew like the biggest ones. The big one back then that I remember most people talking about was Epic Mealtime. And I also remember even things like I'm Schmacked were kind of big back then. But other than that, there wasn't a ton else that college students would think of when they hear of internet content creator YouTuber. So she didn't really find that all that impressive, and I've never treated it like a job or anything, but I just thought it was going to be a good answer to that question, one that she probably hadn't heard before, and she probably never did hear it before because she just straight laughed at it, which didn't make me feel like my chances were being helped. She thought that I was just making like a joke out of it because I just made it like this hyped up thing, like, no, it's a big secret. It's a fucking government secret. I'm not allowed to say it. If I say it, the government's gonna come fucking kill me. And then I just reveal like I make fucking gameplay and commentary videos on YouTube. So she giggled at that, and then she asked what the channel was, so I showed it to her when we parked. I brought up the channel, and at the time, the channel video that would autoplay was my titty simulator game, which of course was a kind of weird look, so I bring that up. At the time I had like 800,000 subscribers, which is a fucking ton, and she was impressed by the number, but the content itself I don't think she was too fond of, because it was titty simulator, with me talking about fucking honkin' milkers being dragged around by their nipple, and then some of the other related ones were other weird games like Don't Shit Your Pants and things. So she didn't really want to stay on the channel that long, but she said congratulations to me, and I was like, well, okay, it didn't really work very well, now did it? So we finally arrive at the beach, confidence is shot, I can tell that this mysterious anime character facade's not doing me any favors, so we end up just going to like a pretty crowded area on the beach at Clearwater, and just laying down, and she played music with her earbuds in, and I just kind of laid there, you know, pretending like this was productive, like, yeah, I'd always wanted a tan, I'll just fucking lay here with my ass cheeks hanging out, I guess, why not? And just fucking sit there doing nothing while she's listening to music at the beach. At the end of it, I just kind of felt like I was an Uber driver who stayed a little too long. Like, she requested a ride, but then I had nothing else to do, so I also just went to the same destination. So we just kind of stayed there for like an hour, and then she's like, alright, I'm ready to head back, I'm kind of hungry. I didn't even bother asking if she wanted to get food with me, because I could already just pick up on the vibe here that it wasn't really going anywhere. So we go back, and then she hugged me, and I was like, fuck, it was all worth it, I got a hug, let's go! Woo! So I got a hug out of it, which means I was a champion that day, but we never talked again, surprisingly. And that's how my first date went, so overall, pretty successful. Got off to a great start, really, in the whole romance world. And yeah, I just wanted to share that with you. I also think it's a pretty interesting look at how things have changed recently, because back then, YouTuber wasn't even a word in anyone's vernacular. No one had ever really like heard of that before. It wasn't really an explored concept, just kind of like this emerging hobby that some people would pick up on. But nowadays, I think it's like 60% of kids want to grow up to be like a YouTuber or internet creator, which is wild. So in less than a decade, it has completely changed. But back then, yeah, that shit was not looked at too positively. But anyway, I just wanted to share this story because I haven't done this one before, and I thought it was worth sharing. That's about it. See ya.